Well, we've made it to week 3, and we're going to be starting with chapters 3 and 4 in the text, as well as chapters 3 and 4 in your workbook. Chapter 3 pertains to aviation medical matters, which may seem to be somewhat abstract to you, but it's as simple as, how do you feel today? Are you depressed? Do you have any other things on your mind than flying? Are you taking any medications that might be a problem? That could happen. You know, you had a little bit of a cold, or you had a night that trouble sleeping, and you took some medication. You need to be certain that that medication will allow you to fly. Of course, the other aspects of aeromedical relate to things such as vision, whether or not you are able to continue to act as a crew member, not only as a pilot in command, but as a crew member. You need to do those kinds of things and self-assess anytime you're going to be flying. That chapter is extremely important, and it relates to your personal, financial, and employer-imposed pressures. Can also lead you to be not fully cognizant of the possible consequences to act as pilot or required flight crew member at a time when you may be medically disqualified from doing so. Become very familiar with those chapters in the FARs as well as the Airman's Information Manual. They will be very helpful to you and will help keep you legal. You may be unaware of the potential consequences, but your certificate can be suspended for periods of time if it is learned that you have been flying when you were medically not qualified to do so. There will be chapter 3 and the questions from the workbook will be included in the quiz that will be set for this week. Also, we're going to be discussing the matter of basic civil liability. Civil liability relates to a number of things, and mostly revolving around the concept of negligence. And negligence is failing to perform an act or do an act that a reasonably careful person would do, or doing an act that a reasonably careful person would not do under the same or similar circumstances to protect others from harm. We also will be determining exploring the matter of various kinds of civil liability. Most civil liability relates to torts, not cakes, not pies, but torts. And a tort is an act or omission that causes injury to another person by breach of a legal duty, that not arising from a contract, which subjects the actor to liability for damages in a civil lawsuit. That may happen so inadvertently you're not even aware of it, but it can occur, and you must be very conscious of what civil liabilities can be. They can be very simple. Simply, was there a slip and fall between the terminal and the aircraft? Was there an injury suffered aboard the aircraft? Was there something that should have been done? Should there have been an umbrella for that person? Should there have been assistance? Those kinds of things may bring liability to your employer and to you. So you have to be very careful and be certain that you are fully cognizant and you understand what the civil liability is. Cost burden of personal injury litigation, attorney's fees, cost of defense, etc., and arising rates for liability insurance impose a strain on an industry already struggling to survive, and that's the aviation industry. If you're with an airline, of course, they have huge pockets, big pockets. But if you're flying corporate, or you're flying charters, or you're flying for a small operator, you must be very cognizant of what your acts are to be certain that you are not falling into a trap which would bring liability to your employer. Bringing liability to your employer could cut your career short very quickly. Remember, we're going to have a quiz this week, so be prepared, be fully versed in the concepts set forth in chapters 3 and 4 of the text, and be well aware of what the questions are in chapters 3 and 4 in the workbook.